That's the movie, but I have a theory. I have a theory about the politics of this movie, which is okay. So if your OG kung fu movie is about the politics of China, and specifically like they think that we are weak, but we are actually not, because we have this like inner strength and martial virtue, which we were used to like reclaim our honor, right? This is, I think, a conscious attempt to depoliticize kung fu in that way. I think it's an attempt to make a sort of like globally palatable kung fu movie, one that's like accessible to audiences in Hong Kong, on the mainland, also in the West. However, I think there are other politics at work here, and I think this is part of a thing. This movie came out the year after the PRC's attempt to do a kind of hands-off national security law in Hong Kong had failed because of mass protests. And there was this brief period, so 2000 through maybe like 2008, 2010, where Chinese foreign policy was very much based on like soft power. And this idea that like, you know, we're going to be nice. We're going to be nice to Hong Kong. We're going to be nice to Taiwan. And this is going to work. And we'll, you know, as long as our national security interests, you know, are settled, will allow any kind of like, you know, a reasonable amount of diversity in all of this. And I think that that's what this movie is going for as well, is it appeals to a kind of sort of like supranational Chineseness of, hey, at the end of the day, aren't we also kind of like one big crazy family who like, you know, live in this one block and, you know, we're kind of like all in this together kind of thing. That's what I think it's going for. And the fact that it's made with mainland funding, the fact that it uses a literally nostalgic 1959 composed communist song in the form of, you know, Song of the Fisherman, the fact that it uses that is like, it's a communist song, but it's a song that it's about like man versus nature rather than man versus man. The fact that Stephen Chow later ended up on the Guangdong Province Political Consultative Council, which is a big fucking thumbs up from the state, like keep doing what you're doing. That to me says that there is a political mode in this film, and that mode is to like file off all of the stuff that makes Stephen Chow's like Hong Kong comedy particularly Hong Kong, to file off all of the stuff that makes a kung fu movie particularly kung fu, and just create this sort of like this product that encompasses this amalgamation that allows you to experience this sort of like greater generalized Chineseness. And the thing about this, I'm wrapping up here, is that it also destroyed Stephen Chow's career.
Yes, that's very much something.
Is this hypothesis? Is that why the film uses so many references? Because that's like a very easy kind of humor.
Yes, yeah, and it's a shared understanding. Like, you know, an audience in Beijing or Shanghai or Guangdong or whatever is going to be as familiar with the Untouchables, or as unfamiliar, I suppose, as one in Hong Kong or even Taiwan. So that's part of it. But so this movie destroyed Stephen Chow's career partly because he I think at that point he was seen as being kind of compromised, right? Not necessarily unfairly even. Mm-hmm. And since then, all he's done is like kind of like moot sequels. He's done some reasonably successful stuff, but they do like big gaps between movies.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's this victim of the sort of the walls going back up between Beijing and Hong Kong specifically. Where after the failure of the national security law, you know, after the Olympics, after all of this, there was this culmination of a series of factors that led to Beijing deciding, okay, no more Mr. Nice Guy, right? We're going to like impose the one country part of one country, two systems, or else, which generated a lot of hostility on both sides. And now, you know, nobody in Beijing wants a Hong Kong movie. Nobody in Hong Kong wants a movie from this guy. And the result is, you have a movie that it's a product of a very narrow window of optimism, and maybe that optimism was cynical, and certainly it was commercial.
And this kind of compromise has left everyone unhappy, and now everyone's like, well, we don't want that guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can do a sort of very reductive analysis of this and be like, Xi Jinping personally made this happen and made it so you can't get Kung Fu Hustle 2. I don't think that's accurate, but I think the reason why you can't get Kung Fu Hustle 2 is because it was like this brief thaw for a while that just did not last because it was unsustainable. And it's a shame, because I think there is something here, and it's. I think I like a multipolar kind of cinema. I think it's good when cinema industries from places that are not the United States or Europe can make movies, even if those movies are like kind of cynical and heartless.
But this film still does use this idea of like they think we're weak, but secretly we are strong. Because
of course.
Like the gay kung fu master, and like the fact that all the people in this town in Pigsty Alley, all the kung fu masters, and also the landlord.
Yeah.
And the guy on the bus with the glasses, you know?
There's multiple ways to read that, I think. And I think it's a question of whether you like tend to treat it as comedy first, or whether you think that it's more seriousness followed by comedy. Mm-hmm. To be like this effeminate gay guy is secretly a kung fu master. It contains one of two possible things, which is contains a lot of possible things, but two of the possible readings of that are this guy might seem funny to you, but he contains sort of like inner virtue. Or it could also be
how incongruous that a homosexual man with no kung fu.
Yes, exactly. Right. It's inherently funny and it's a parody. Yeah, and I'm not sure. I think it depends on the audience. I think that's something that's sort of left to the viewer here. So I read all of this shit, and that's what I think about it.
I knew none of that. I simply saw a film that was badly made and just had bad CGI, some weird editing choices. I feel better about it having learned more of the context, so I'm glad that I've been educated.